As I begin to start this presentation or think about how to construct it, I kept trying to find out what was the best way to give a TED Talk. So I went online to find out trending videos. I read the TED Talk book and I said, how can I create a good talk? And I just kept saying, how can I create a good talk? So what I decided to do was go online, find these stock photos, because I didn't want to do anything illegal. I wanted to make sure I had photos that were, wouldn't get me in trouble, was going out to the world. But then I also said, how can I structure the talk to where people can see that, hey, this guy come off intelligent, he's doing the video this way, and I said, it's going to be a good video. So I contacted my friend Stoyan in Sofia, Bulgaria, an international speaker, and I said, hey, look, I got this TED Talk coming up. He got really excited about it. And I said, I want to share my talk with you so you can tell me if it's good or not. He said, okay. So I called him through Facebook, and I sent him my slides, and I started doing the talk for him. And he stopped me and said, oh, no, man, this is not you. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, you tell stories, you speak from your heart, and I don't feel none of that. And it made me think about, who am I? What am I doing? Am I trying to be a good speaker? Am I trying to be a professor? What am I trying to do? What am I really trying to convey to my audience? And it made me ask this question of, am I buying into assigned roles? Or am I really trying to speak from my heart to other hearts? Because that's who I really am. And it made me start thinking about this story when I was younger, and I was asking myself, am I eating fruit from the tree of knowledge and good and evil? Or am I eating fruit from the tree of life? And some of you may be saying, what are you talking about, the tree of knowledge and good and evil, or the tree of life? Well, when I was younger, my parents used to sit me down and read these Bible stories to me. So it made me think of the story of Adam and Eve. And Adam and Eve, they was living in paradise. They was walking around naked with no shame, no guilt, and they was able to speak and connect with God on a day-to-day basis. And then one shrewd serpent came in and said, hey, why are you not eating fruit from the middle of the garden? And it was like, well, God told us if we eat from that tree, then we'll surely die. And the serpent said, you won't surely die. God know you won't die. So if you eat from this fruit, then you'll become just like God. And God don't want that. So they decided to eat fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And as soon as they ate, all of a sudden their eyes became open and they realized they was naked. And then they started hiding. And God came and was asking, hey, Adam, Eve, where are you? And they said, we're hiding. He said, why are you hiding? And they said, because we're naked. And God said, who told you you were naked? So it made me think, who told you, James, you have to give a good talk? You need to give a talk that comes from your heart. And it made me start thinking about when we're younger, we live in paradise. As little babies, we don't know that we're black, white. We don't know that we're male, female, heterosexual, homosexual. We just enjoy life. And the only thing we fight for is our fun, our freedom, and our joys. Until a shrewd serpent come in. And you may be saying, who is the shrewd serpent? The serpent is normally our parents, our pastors, some adults that come and tell us who we are. And when I was told who I was, it always came from a superior or inferior perspective. When I was told I was a boy, it was like, stand up, you're a boy. You don't sit down, you don't cry. Girls cry, boys stand up, they be tough. So it was more superior than inferior of a female. But then I was told you're black. And it's like, be proud that you're black, but it's a white man's world. So I felt a little bit more inferior. But then my parents said, you're heterosexual, you like girls. So you're more superior than a homosexual. Then my parents said, well, you're a Christian. Christians go to heaven. So I felt more superior than anybody else that wasn't a Christian. But it's all lies. Check your life. We're all born to be limitless. We're all born to be unique. We're all created for a unique purpose. But if we decide to continue to eat fruit from the tree of knowledge and good and evil, we will surely live in hell. And I know some of you say knowledge is not bad, and I agree, knowledge is not bad when you're using it for a practical purpose. But when you buy into the idea that you are who people tell you are, you create limitations. So I want to show you what hell looks like. No, it's not this hell that you look at, you're burning in fire forever and ever, but I'm talking about a mental hell, a suffering that we create because we buy into these ideals that you're not good enough, you're not worthy enough. Welcome to my hell. When I was younger, I used to buy into the idea that I'm not smart enough, that I'm not good enough. I was bullied. I'm short. So people are picking on me because of my height. So what did I do? I decided to put on a mask of being a thug, of being a tough guy. So I started selling drugs at 13. I had 2 kids before I was 17. I was a high school dropout. I was affiliated with gangs, almost shot somebody. I got numerous of fights. Why? Because I felt like I had to be somebody else to earn some type of validation. And many of us try to find validations. We choose careers, we choose jobs, we choose lovers, because our friends may accept us for being in this way, so we need this validation. But as long as we do that, we find ourselves living in hell. But sooner or later, you got to ask yourself, when do you want to get away from this party, this hell? Because we all hit that moment where we wear that mask a little too long and it gets so hot that we start sweating and we take the mask off and we get a little bit of a reprieve. And we say, wow, it feels so good. But then you look around and you see people still wearing masks. And you have a choice. Do you put your mask back on and join the party? Or do you decide to keep your mask off and walk away? Because the party will never be the same. And the biggest fear about leaving a party is you will lose some friends. You may lose some opportunities in this world that you created that you thought was special. But you got to be willing to walk out and do things differently. So for me, it was all about mask off. I needed a mental transformation. So my mental transformation for me came in an acronym that I like to call MAC. And MAC is personally chosen. All the acronyms I use, they're a personal connection to me. So MAC is my twin brother, and MAC stood for hope. So the M was be mindful, mindfulness, be in the moment. I had to learn how to appreciate and be grateful for every second that I got and stop thinking that I needed to try to win somebody's approval or some form of validation. And then the A was act. Am I going to choose to eat fruit from the tree of knowledge and good and evil? Or am I going to choose to eat fruit from the tree of life? One is duality. I got to buy into this right or wrong, do it to appease or placate other individuals. The other is to just accept life for the way it is and have an experience. And then C, that's when check your life really became this powerful mantra for me. A lot of magicians say abracadabra. As I speak, I create. Check your life became my way of, when I say check your life, I create. And then K, knowing that I'm limitless. So now when I say check your life, I visualize and say what it is that what I really want to have. So check your life made me challenge and decide to be uncommon amongst the common. But I had to be willing to take risks. So that led me to my TOYA. Now TOYA is another powerful acronym. You're looking up at this picture and say, what does it have to do with the military picture? Well, the T, I had to learn to take risk. I had to learn to take risks. I had to do something that I said I would never do. I said I would never join the military. I thought the uniforms were corny. Why would I join the military? But when my back got against the wall and I knew I needed to do something that was different, I decided to join the Air Force. And then the next part of the T is related to this name. It's my wife, TOYA. So I decided to marry her after dating her for 1 month. And it actually ended up being one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. Because then it started leading me to other opportunities, which is the O. The O, opportunities, I had to learn how to be like Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein said, I wasn't born with a lot of talent, but I was born passionately curious. So I had to become curious. So I decided to go back to college, and when I went, I said, every time I meet with a professor, how can I learn 7 things that I can use that would help me personally and professionally for the rest of my life? So I ended up being a person that left college with a 1.8 GPA on academic probation to graduating with a 3.68, and then later on in life, acquiring 6 college degrees, but being the first one in my family to graduate. And then once all of these things started happening, Y came into place, yield. I started receiving other awards and privileges, and people started acknowledging me for things that I was doing. So I had the opportunity to learn to receive an incentive flight, a T-38. I was able to get in a jet, not an airplane. So I'm walking out on a flight line, and I'm looking like Tom Cruise. I put on my hat, I get into the jet, and then I'm sitting as the co-pilot, and we decide to take off. And as soon as we take off, I feel that power, I feel the energy. And we decide to go up, and we start taking 4 Gs, and I'm literally contracting. And then Major Barnes said, I need you to take the stick. And I said, take the stick. He said, yeah, I got to do something. So I take the stick, and all of a sudden the jet goes down. And we start going into a free fall, and I'm freaking out. Oh my God, you told me to take the stick. He said, yeah, I didn't tell you to take the stick. He said, you decided to do it. I said, no, you told me to take the stick. So now I'm terrified. But then all of a sudden, he grabbed the stick, and the plane goes back up. And as the jet goes up, I start realizing that I'm in a jet. I can do things that I never thought I can do. So it led me to the next thing that is A, assets, my beliefs. My belief became my greatest asset. So then that asset led me to say, James, face your fears. There's nothing in this world that you should be afraid of, because fear is fake evidence appearing real. So the greatest fear that I ever had was my fear of heights. So I had to find a way to face the fear. So what I decided to do was jump out of a plane at 14,000 feet. Check your life. I'm not afraid of fear. I'm not afraid of heights. I decided to jump out of planes at 14,000 feet. Now my next fear was I always wanted to act. But I said, now that I'm a professor, how can I act? How can people are going to look at me like he's not doing his research, he's not teaching, he's not doing these things. How is he going to be an actor? And I said, no, James, check your life. You are an actor. And the first role that you're going to star in is going to be a guy named Waco Collins in Murder Chose Me, a big-time drug dealer who decided to go around the city terrorizing things. Whoever thought that your past would come back to be a blessing to you? Now, the next fear I had was I always wanted to be a speaker all around the world. But I said, how am I going to be a speaker when I had to relearn the English language? I used to think it was he do, and I learned that it's he does. James, you can't speak across the world. The world is not going to receive you. Check your life. You will not just speak across the world. You will go to Sofia, Bulgaria, and you'll teach leadership and mindfulness. But you won't just go to Sofia, Bulgaria. You'll go to China, and you'll teach soft skills. But you won't just go to China. You'll also teach hospitality leadership to the University of Tennessee men's basketball team, which happened to be one of the best teams in the nation. Go Vols. Now, it led me to this next part of my life, though. I ended up gaining a lot of weight. I got up to 204 pounds, 33% body fat, and I became very fluffy. And then I was diagnosed with hypertension. And I had to take the pills, and they said it was hereditary. And when I was taking the pills, it messed up my blood flow. And it was doing things to my body that didn't make my wife quite happy. You can use your imagination. So I said, James, are you going to be this way all your life? Nah, I'm not going to be this way all my life. Check your life. I'm not going to be somebody that's ashamed of my body. I'm going to be somebody that take his shirt off on the cover of a book and have abs and get to the lowest weight that I've ever been in my life, 155 pounds, in between 7 to 8% body fat. And when I do that, I'm not going to just be somebody that has a nice looking body. I'm no longer going to have to take pills. I don't take pills for hypertension anymore. So the question I want to ask you, when you look at this image behind me, are you going to decide to continue to buy into your assigned roles that appear to be purity because it's white, somebody gave you, but that's not who you really want to be? Are you going to decide to eat fruit from the tree of knowledge and good and evil? Or are you going to decide to eat fruit from the tree of life and allow that red passion to fuel you, and then allow all of the question marks that you may have about yourself to be limitless to really drive who you are as a person? Because we all start with this hot air balloon that's on the ground. But the more we fill it with good things, the more it rises. So it leads me to my last acronym, which is DEON, which stands for power. Do your best, excellence on notice, for every second of every day. But how do you get to that point? What I do every single day that I wake up in the morning and that I do throughout the day is say, check your life. Today will be a glorious day. And for 86,400 seconds, I will give my excellence and my best until I'm laid to rest. God bless, no stress. Check your life. Thank you.